All right. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday morning. We're going to take it kind of easy this morning. We had a good show Saturday night. It actually went surprisingly well, all things considered, and long. We Mario and I had a meeting last night, teleconference with one of our viewers and a source on a very interesting story. Hopefully we'll have a special coming out on that. So we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to try and kind of expand where the show is going. I also had a chance encounter yesterday that was amusing. We'll see where that goes. I had to go to Lowe's yesterday to pick up some tools. And there was a couple selling peanuts in front of the building. Great big old boiler pot on a trailer, kind of a pretty cool mechanism they had working there. But I stopped to talk to the guy, and the guy's a pedophile hunter. So changed some information with him. Hopefully that'll turn into something. And y'all, the weather's cooling down, so we're going to be looking at doing the BFM pop-ups at various events, fall festivals, and the like. So, working on how we're going to work out live broadcasting from events like that. There's a couple of different ways we can do it. And, you guys watching the show and helping us grow this thing is a big part of how we're able to pursue that kind of stuff. So glad to see you all joining us this morning. This morning, we're going to talk about Patrick Bet David on the Jubilee debate show. So Jubilee has this format, this outnumbered format, where they bring in one person and they surround them with people that disagree with them. And they go for several hours with these people running up to the table and debating them. Now, recently there was one with this, I think she's a singer, something like that. Patrick says he doesn't see me on Rumble. That's interesting. We're on Rumble, and here I'm. Now this is interesting. I don't know what the hell's going on here. I'm not seeing the chats coming from Rumble. So Patrick, I'm glad you said something. It's not showing me any numbers from Rumble either, but I can clearly see if I pull up I pulled up Rumble separately and popped out the chat over here. So I could see Sergeant Major over there, Pitt Danny, Cam. So we're on Rumble, but there's something weird's going on in the background here. So I'm glad you said something, Patrick. I'll make sure I send a message over to support and say, yo, because we had this problem Saturday night too when we were Rumble exclusive behind the paywall. We weren't getting the chat update over here. So we'll have to take a look at that. So anyway, like I was saying, Jubilee does this outnumbered program where they have one debater sit down, they surround them with people who disagree with them, and people rush up and argue with them. The one that made a big splash recently was the singer, black chick in a ridiculous comic book villain jacket, who was just, she was just awful. Just awful. I've never watched one of these all the way through. I've only ever watched clips. And it seems like what you get with these is a bunch of idiots shouting at somebody often. I've watched a couple of clips of several different debaters go on there. Ben Shapiro did one, and it usually what you see is the lefties that surround the debater come up with the Gish Gallop, where they just say a bunch of things in sequence really fast, so that they've made a dozen ridiculous points, and it's impossible for the debater to respond to all the points within a set time limit. and then, oh, see, I got you. You can't answer my. Shut up. You're not a competent debate partner. And there is a limit there. So PBD went on though, and I decided to cover this one because Patrick Bet David. I like the guy's work. I really do. I like his show. I like his podcast, and this is an insurance industry guy, and a veteran. Military veteran. So PBD is a foreigner that is in America and has, went the right way, got a citizenship, all that great stuff, and went into the insurance business and made himself a damn fortune. And he does shows about how to do business, how to grow business, how to interact with high value individuals, high net worth clients. Great stuff. He's also done several very, very good dissertations on things like how taxes work. And I'm not just talking about the history and the origin or about, how to deal with taxes in your business, but like the whole layer of what taxation is, which is very interesting material. Be Controversial says he believes he's Iranian. I'm not sure. I think you're right, but yeah, I like PBD. So they sent him on and they surrounded him with communists. Now, when we say communist, right, we're using that term kind of loosely here because what we're talking about really are American, rich American kids who are, they are and have the privilege that they complain about. And they're just completely convinced that the world would be a better place if it were communist. And they're going to walk and sit down with this billionaire, well, multimillionaire, I guess, and make the argument that they would prefer communism. And their arguments are just psychotic, but I want you to pay close attention. There's another aspect here that I found really interesting. It's a common thread that he repeats throughout it. And the fact of it alone makes his point almost better than any position he argues, any fact that he claims. So we'll start with this chick.
Is that socialism would be a transitionary state between capitalism and communism, where the means of production are specifically owned by workers, not privately. The idea that any country now is
that. Before we get to anything else, that's something I want you to pay attention to with all of these. They all gish gallop. And the other thing you'll notice is they're always just completely breathless. Chain of meaningless things that are platitudes and bumper stickers, logos, and then there's this thing, and then there's this, and then okay. Look, here is the first thing that these people probably need to learn. Thinking and speaking are two different things. Right? You ever watch Jordan Peterson do an interview? One of the things that makes his interviews so good is when he's asked a question, he will sit there quietly for a moment. Sometimes longer than it in fact, often he'll sit there and not say anything for longer than an American audience's attention span is strictly comfortable with. Right? He pauses, he collects his thoughts, and then he responds to the question. Then he speaks. Okay, so real quick, there's something, it's going odd over here with Rumble. I see Sergeant Major made a comment. Pitt Danny made a comment, a couple of comments. Pitt Danny said he is a Christian and hey, Patrick. And then Patrick said, Cam, after last Thursday, copying is all have energy for at the moment. Still love you, brother. Those 3 comments made it into the unified thread from Rumble, but nothing else is. So I don't know what's going on there. Again, I'll get in touch with Rumble about that. But let's check back in with this chick. And I'm gonna back this one up.
Is that socialism would be a transitionary state between capitalism and communism, where the means of production are specifically owned by workers, not.
Okay, she said socialism would be a transitionary state between capitalism and communism. I will remind you that we've heard this many times before, right? Stalin and Lenin were both very clear that communism is the end goal of socialism. And then, of course, we had the whole thing with Obamacare, where we caught Gruber explaining that the point to Obamacare is that it's broken. It's supposed to fail because it's intended to force America to have no choice but to accept a total federalization and takeover and a one-party payer system in U.S. healthcare. The end goal of socialism is always communism. The only reason socialism exists is to sort of boil the frog into communism. So she is in fact correct about that. Socialism is the spoonful of sugar that helps the poison go down.
Privately, the idea that any country now is anywhere near socialist, let alone communist, would simply be ridiculous, and just it wouldn't reflect theory whatsoever.
What is the definition of communism to you?
Stateless, moneyless classes society.
And you prefer that?
Yeah. So I think that we should be moving towards
communism.
Yeah, stateless, moneyless classes society.
So
yeah.
you don't think a person like me should exist with the amount of wealth that I have?
Yeah, because I think that we're getting to this point where we're creating fake scarcity for people like you to accumulate the wealth that you have on the basis of private ownership.
Okay, so you're not capitalist. You're definitely not capitalist. You're not socialist. You want to go full communism.
So what do you think that looks like, though?
She's not even talking about communism. She's talking about anarcho-communism. And God, Jesus, there is no such thing. There is no such thing as anarcho anything. Okay, so what she's just described what she said, and I quote, a cashless, leaderless, free society. Not possible. Imagine for a moment you find yourself in the woods. It's you, a couple of people, not everybody in the not everybody out there. You're just lost in the woods. You don't know which way the highway is. You are full on in the jungle, and you've got this is where you are. Okay. And with you, there's one guy who has some kind of, high-level special forces, survivalist, legitimate training on how to survive in this situation. The moment, right? You might all say, okay, well, we could do a diversified and equitable division of labor. You guys go collect some firewood, you go pick some berries, we'll get all this going. But as soon as a bear walks into the clearing, you are all going to look at the one guy that you think can handle it. If you are not somebody who is already confident to deal with the situation, you will turn to the man who is. And you will expect him to rise to the occasion, to give you orders, and to save your life. Right? This bitch, in that situation, is the kind of person who's going to hear the competent, action-oriented individual engaged to solve the urgent problem. not the chronic problem, the acute one. The bear is going to eat you all. And she's going to argue with him and insist that they survive it by committee. And let me tell you something. Personally, faced with that situation, I will kill you and then focus on the bear. Because you are creating a greater threat than the bear. Right? Because then I have to do the math. Okay, there's 20 of us here. I can try to ignore this idiot and focus on the bear and probably save 75% of these people. Or I could be done with this one now and 19 of us walk away with fur boots. That's easy math. That's easy math. And frankly, we find ourselves in a position like this because in order to be a communist, you have to be bad at math. But in no case, in no circumstance is there such a thing as what these sociopathic commie romanticists imagine to be an anarchical system with no leadership. Leadership is an absolute guarantee. It's that simple. Somebody is either the most competent or the most effective schemer, but somebody is going to lead your group, and you will be in a group. You'll be part of a family, a tribe, a clan, a nation, something. The idea of the total isolated, rugged individualist, okay, that person might be able to survive, but as soon as they encounter a group, they're either going to have to interact with it, join with it, trade with it, something. They're going to have involvement there. And there's not a world in which every person is that that rugged isolationist survival character. It cannot be the case that everybody is that person. Because if we do that, we're totally atomized like that, then there's no reproduction, there's no facilitation of the family. Man dies. Mankind ceases to exist. Right? So there must be family of some kind. And that doesn't happen without that there is some sort of leadership. Right? Even if you're kind of a nouveau mommy and daddy or interchangeable, that kind of troon sociopathy, you have to at least treat your children as subordinate for the purposes of fostering their education and their general survival. Or you're just going to run the fuck out of people.
That was a thing, right? So what Marx actually wanted was for us to reach a point where we no longer have the scarcity of resources that has kind of predicted, history as it looks like now. It wouldn't happen now. Right. It would happen as we automate. At this point in time, we can decommodify housing and food and education for around 5% of the government budget. That's 1/5, a little bit over 1/5 of what we spend on the military already. We don't, because we were living in the state where it almost seems utopian that things like food and shelter. How old were you the
first time you thought you wanted to be a communist? How old were you?
So this girl, I've talked about this a bit before. This girl has watched too much Star Trek. We could decommoditize everything. Everybody can have everything they need. We've got more than we. Oh my God, no. Okay, this is the kind of idiot that's going to look at the world and say, "Hey, there are vacant houses that people don't live in. There are millionaires and billionaires who own more than one home. They have a primary home. Maybe they have two homes, because they run their business on both coasts, and then they've got a vacation home. So they've got more than one house, but they're not living in that house all the time. And then there's houses all over the place that are vacant because they've been abandoned. They're being remodeled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We could solve the homeless problem if we just give all the homeless people homes. Have you ever lived in a house that needed work? Right? So, okay, you're not all homeowners. Actually, looking at the names that I recognize here, I know a bunch of you are homeowners. As a homeowner, you have responsibilities. You cannot give houses to homeless people. Maybe, if I'm being generous, maybe a quarter of them will be able to recognize what they have and deal with it appropriately. Except that, no, not even that. Because when you're talking about homeless people, it's not like they have the resources to deal with the home. Home maintenance is not just about upkeeping the property value, et cetera, et cetera. If your pipes freeze and burst and you don't know what to do about it, or you can't afford to call somebody who knows what to do about it, that's it. The house will fall down. One pipe bursts and nothing is done about it, the house will fall down sooner rather than later. It will be gone. You don't know how to recognize black mold forming somewhere, right? You don't know how to fix a leak in the roof or hire somebody to do it for you. Being a homeowner is a lot of responsibility. Now, when Danny mentions renters, I lived in an interesting situation for a while. I had an excellent rent price on a relatively large house. But if I'm being honest, it was kind of a shady deal. And it was a great deal for us, but it was a little tricky because of the nature of the relationship and the deal. I'm not going to go into great detail, but I was renting for a while where, because I was basically shouldering the costs and responsibilities of being the homeowner, we offset that by me paying a lower rent than the market. I was paying about half little less than half of what the market value of the rent on that property would be while I was there. But at the same time, while I was there, because of the nature of the deal, when the air conditioner went out, I had to replace it. When I wanted trees cleared out of the yard, that was out of my pocket, right? I had to have some trees cleared out of the yard here, and I was about to write that check, and my dad said, no, I want to write that check. I want to write that check for you to keep my grandkids safe. And I argued with him, and then I finally said, you know what? Thank you. You know what, old man? Okay, I appreciate it. And that is that right there. Not just being able to take care of your own responsibilities, but having the, let's face it, the power, right? The wealth that translates to the power to do a kind thing for someone you love for no more reason than you love them. That is a thing that this communist cannot even imagine. In fact, it is so beyond her ken that the way she imagines, the closest thing she has to something similar to being able to just do a good thing for someone for no reason other than they need it and you love them, is that you take a gun and you force someone else to write that check for you. That's the extent of her altruism, is literally armed robbery couched in the name of taxation and communism.
Is that a response to any really of the curious statistics?
Okay, and you know what? That's enough of this particular little idiot. Let's check in with one of the other little idiots. This one's pretty entertaining as well.
That is why I'm anti-capitalist, because capitalism. I like to be free, but that's why I'm anti-capitalist. Well, maybe you are. That is why.
She said, "I like to be free, and that is why I'm anti-capitalist." That is a person who doesn't know what the word capitalist means.
I'm anti-capitalist because capitalism removes that choice. There is no real incentive of capitalism because the incentive is survival. When you get into communism, the incentive
She can't shut up long enough to hear a response.
Incentive is for the common good.
I love that. I got an offer for you before we move on. If I were to give you your $2,350, which is the cost to renunciate your citizenship, and I paid you your first class, flight to whatever communist country, and $20,000 to spend
Name me
money,
a communist country.
would you give up your citizenship to go to that country? Whichever communist country you want to go to. Cuba, we can give you Venezuela, we give you North Korea, any one of those you want to go to. Choose any one of.
There you go. I'll pay your freight. I'll help you renounce your citizenship. I'll give you $20,000 of spending money and buy you a first-class ticket to any communist country you want. And instead of her waffling the way you might expect and saying, "Oh, well, I don't want to leave my family," she says there are no communist countries. Okay, I hate to say this, sweetheart. I hate to tell you, but you don't get to decide what is or isn't communism. Words have meanings, just like you don't get to decide what is or isn't male or female. Words have meanings, right? What did he say? Cuba, Venezuela, and North Korea, right? He listed those three, right? And she said, those aren't communist countries. Oh, real communism's never been tried. Yes, it has. Honey, it has been tried over and over and over again, and it always has the same results. Right? Whether it's Mao's China, Stalin's Russia, right? The Kim regime in North Korea, Venezuela, Castro in Cuba, or Nazi Germany, socialism leads to communism, and that equals death. And make no mistake, when I list Nazi Germany in there, I'm not even talking about concentration camps and gassing the Jews leads to death, right? That's a whole separate thing ideologically. You got to remember, socialism in Nazi Germany also led to a destroyed economy where people starved because communism destroyed their economy. Now, they called it socialism, National Socialism. I'm telling you, trying to say that socialism and communism are different is arguing the nutritional difference between Coca-Cola and RC Cola. It's just a different label. Little different flavor. It's still diabetes in a can. Right? It's still diabetes in a can. So she says, oh, none of those are communist countries. They don't communism the way I want them to communism. So, I mean, we're not talking about smart people here. No.
Mentally ill because I am disabled and a capitalist. I'm also
okay. This just she's gonna say it, and nobody's
I'm also mentally ill, so that was something I had to do.
Septum piercing theory. I'm also mentally. Yeah, obviously you're mentally ill. You're wearing a bull ring. You shaved off your eyebrows and drew on thin ones. You're wearing a bull ring. I mean, child. This right here. Yes. Oh, I'm mentally ill.
I'm also mentally ill, so that was something I had to deal with. But I'm mainly mentally ill because I am disabled in a capitalist country.
Tell me more about mentally ill. Who qualified you as somebody that's mentally ill?
Me and my doctor team.
Who convinced you that you're mentally ill?
Me and my doctor team.
What's the specific category of mental illness? Is there one? You know why I asked this question? Let me explain to why I asked this
So
question.
I don't even like the psychological industry. I don't really stand for like Sigmund Freudian politics or anything like that. I don't have access to even a result or a solution to my disability as someone with a connective tissue disorder. It's genetic.
Have you been able to go to different doctors and get yourself tested?
Yeah.
You have?
Yes.
And in California?
Yes, but not enough.
Who
I can't find a specialist.
You can't find a specialist?
I can't find a specialist
Is there
for who I
anyone in your
am.
life that's willing to pay for a specialist?
Well, they could they would if they had money, but yeah.
Would you be okay if I pay for a specialist for you to go see?
Yeah.
Would you take money from a capitalist to help you go see specialist?
I mean, yeah, sure, why not?
I'm going to have you go see two. Do you live in California?
Yeah.
I'm going to have you go see two specialists, but would you also be open to seeing somebody else I choose as a psychologist that may...
No.
You're not.
No.
So you
choose as a psychologist. You're choosing who gets to determine what my mental health looks like. No.
Okay, then I wish you nothing but the best.
See, you choose my say. Well, I mean, I want to recommend you somebody. I'm not gonna give you, here's all the money you need to go see a shrink, and you get to, and you, no, you're gonna go see somebody that fits the bill, right? I mean, he just offered to hand her somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 essentially, based on nothing more than her claim that she has problems. And I mean, she obviously has problems. She's obviously mentally ill. In fact, if I were to venture a guess, I would, based on my understanding of psychology and mental health medicine, I would guess that she got involved with some kind of drugs as a middle teenager, somewhere in the 14, 15, 16-year-old area. And her mental maturity was essentially retarded to that point. And she abused drugs early enough that she's going to be emotionally 14, 15, 16 forever. Right. So, I mean, that girl right there she's going to be in her 40s and obsessed with, basically lunch table gossip instead of, any of the other various mechanisms of human productivity and meaningful relationships. She's likely never to have a meaningful relationship because of her drug use. And based on the look in her eyes and the level she paused at, I suspect it was almost entirely marijuana, probably a little bit of some kind of ADHD, Ritalin type of one of those in there. And that, by the time she was 17, 18, 19, somewhere in that 3-year span before she began to really develop mentally, SSRIs got involved, and she has essentially been chemically programmed to disdain happiness. She's going to be stuck like that for a long, long time. And those marijuana early in your youth, a lot of marijuana early in your youth, and SSRIs before you're 20. Like that's what creates socialism. That's what creates communism. That's what creates liberals as we know them in the lexicon today, in the vernacular. That's how you get Democrat voters, is you cripple their mental development as teenagers, as children, and then you take them without the emotional maturity and development of an adult with world experiences, and you subject them to world experiences. And they haven't developed enough to have a global identity and an awareness of their surroundings. So they remain, basically narcissistically adhered to a worldview that assumes that all external loci are resultant from internal effect. That's you want your septum piercing theory? That's it right there. It's essentially a declaration that I need to be led around by the nose because I do not have the emotional or intellectual maturity and development or the sphincteral integrity to make choices and assume consequences. Right. Let's do one more of these. Maybe two more because this one's only 30 seconds long. And this kid thinks he's so smart. This is funny. Here we go.
Most people don't make it in insurance, just like most people who move to California.
I apologize for the audio quality on this one. I don't know why this clip in particular has the awful audio.
You don't make it in Hollywood.
So I believe the technical term for when you make more money from getting people to be part of a company than from actually selling a service is called a multi-level marketing scheme. Do you think that that's a fair characterization of your company? Why not?
Do you know what multi-level?
Right. Look, this doughboy, this just absolute doughball thinks that he's so smart. Oh, what you do is you make more money from getting people to join your organization than. No, he doesn't. What? He's an insurance broker. Tell you something, guys. I did that job. I made pretty good money doing that job. I even hired people. I paid for several young agents to go and get licensed and work for me. And they sold a hell of a lot more insurance than they recruited more agents. In fact, they never recruited more agents. It wasn't their job. It's not what I paid them for. He's an insurance guy. That is, and I mean, I can go on and on about what a scam the insurance business is. But the insurance business is a big damn business. And I mean that's what PBD does. I don't know how much he personally sells insurance anymore, but there is a point where you've sold so much insurance that now your job is to have people sell insurance. But that is not the same thing as a pyramid scheme, right? That's he's trying to, this kid's trying to equate running an insurance brokerage to being like a Pampered Chef consultant. Not the same thing at all. Danny asks, how many books do you think she read? Brother, I would be amazed if any of these communists that are sitting down at this table have even read the books that they were assigned by their grade school teachers. Right? These guys haven't read 1984. They haven't read Brave New World. They haven't read, Clan of the Cave Bear, Call of the Wild. They haven't read, they don't read books. Reading is anathema to them. That would require some self-reflection and some personal development and growth and emotional maturity. That's just not something. Right? Sergeant Major says, either way, referencing the insurance versus the Pampered Chef thing. And okay, listen, I didn't mean to beat up on Pampered Chef too much. I love me some Pampered Chef. I've got a shitload of it in my kitchen. And some of it I bought from my mother. Some of it I bought from my wife. Some of it I bought from my buddies' wives. My point is, they're not the same thing. Sergeant Major says they probably haven't read the Bible. I can just about guarantee you that one too. So I'm going to do this one last because this one's funny.
How about I interview you and I give you a job? Would you move to Fort Lauderdale?
Ooh, man, that's Florida. Sure, why not?
Would you move to Fort Lauderdale?
Sure, why not?
How about you and I?
How about I interview you and I give you a job? Sure, why? Would you move to Fort Lauderdale? Would you move to Florida? Sure, why not? Here we go.
Document this. After this, you come, I do an interview with you, and I give you a job. And let's see what you do 90 days later.
Okay.
And he said, give you a job. right? He didn't say, let me hire you as an insurance agent. For starters, because look at you. I mean, look at you. Just, I don't know what else to say about that. This kid, he's got the dog head clamp around the ring with the. I see Mjolnir there, right? He's got the sides of his head shaved. This queer thinks he's a Viking. Wow. so much. This kid watched Vikings and based his entire personality around it.
I'll look up your company and all that kind of stuff and I'll see it. But
you see what just happened?
Okay. PBD's about to beat his ass over this, but I got another point that I want to beat on real quick. So PBD's going to get after him about him saying, I'm going to look up the company. And you're being picky about the job. There's some context before this. This guy said he's applied to like 500 different jobs and nobody calls him back. Gee, I wonder why. I'd love to see this guy's resume. I'm sure there's a lot of burgers on that resume, right? And we're not talking about, Chef Greg Klein burgers. We're talking about whatever, this is a fry chef, right? I mean, the height of this man's career may have been working a grill at Waffle House. And I don't mean to shit on my Waffle House cooks. I love you guys. My buddy Levi was the egg pan slinging this motherfucker in the rodeo. But this guy is sitting down with a billionaire who just said, I'll give you a job. Y'all, I've done okay. Yeah. If I'm sitting at a table under any circumstances at all, and somebody like a Patrick Bet-David or a Donald Trump, right, or an Elon Musk, or even a lefty scumbag with the kind of clout and money like a Jeff Bezos, right, says, I'll give you a job. I might have to seriously think about that, even if it's a job that pays less than what I'm doing now. Right? You have to think about that, because there is a lot of value in good positioning. Making more money is not always the next best step. Sometimes it really is. And to be clear, this guy does not have a job. So let me back that up just a little bit. Cameron has told the story on air before about years and years and years ago. He was living with a girlfriend and her college roommate, I think is how it went down. And the old college roommate had graduated college, had her, I think it was her master's in education, right? Some bullshit advanced degree. And she was unemployed, and she wasn't paying, she was living in the house, not paying rent, not buying groceries, not, no money. And, one day Cameron asked her, he's like, what's the problem? I mean, there's now hiring signs all over the place. Ruby Tuesdays is looking for waitresses. McDonald's is looking for shift managers. There's jobs all over the place out here. Oh, well, but I have a master's degree. I can't do one of the, no. Bitch, if you don't have a job, nothing is beneath you. If you can't feed yourself, nothing is beneath you. Nobody's hiring for your degree path. Nobody's hiring for the career field that you just spent $100,000 in 6 years in college on, and you can't find a job in that career path. Honey, You get to be Piss Harry of the Yellow River. You take your bucket around and collect urine to sell to the apothecary until you figure your shit out. Sergeant Major says, easy now. I have a master's degree and I don't have a job. Okay, fair play. If you don't have a job and you're broke, right? when you're old and you've got money and you've got a self-perpetuating residual income as a result of a pension or something like that, that's a different creature altogether. And yeah, but and Pitt Danny says, look while you work. Yeah. Right? Obviously. You're looking for a job? Do something in the interim. Right? It's okay to be a fry cook while you're trying to get a job as a college professor. Ain't hard. Get a job. Jesus. And but then listen to how this guy qualifies.
Watch what you just did.
Sure.
You just said you applied to 477 companies who's not gone back to you.
Yeah.
A business owner who's hiring aggressively just made an offer to you. You said you're willing to move. Then you said, I'll look at it. You became selective.
I didn't say I look at it if you'd let me finish my sentence.
Go ahead. I want to hear it.
I would like to look into your company to see exactly what you guys do.
You would like to?
Because I don't know what you guys do.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, I may be wasting my time going. If you guys are a finance company, if you guys are a bank or something like that, I don't have the certifications. I don't have the degrees.
He didn't say, I want you to be a banker. He didn't say, I want you to be an insurance agent. He said, I'll give you a job. You don't have a job. This guy doesn't have a job. A billionaire just said, I'll give you a job. Son, if that job is he needs a janitor or a mail cart boy or a gopher to get the coffee, that's a fucking job. And guess what? If you are the guy that's, walking in and say, "Oh, hey, Mr. David, excuse me, I'm just here to take out your trash." "Oh, hey, Joey, good to see you." Right? He knows your name. You're going to talk to him. Let me tell you something. When I was still active duty, the commanders, the sergeants major, the first sergeants, the company battalion brigade commanders, right? They knew my name. They knew my face. They knew me on sight. And very rarely would they not stop me and have a brief conversation. Right? I made a point of that. And in fact, I made a point of that by frankly taking my smoke breaks at the smoke pit closest to their offices. Right? And it was always, you'd have your teams, while not everybody smoked, everybody would go to the smoke pit to talk to their buddies who smoked. And if you're the colonel, right, your buddies that smoke are other colonels, light birds, sergeants major, first sergeant, etc. And that's kind of where I lived when I was operating the training and operations piece for Delta in Hawaii. And that was incredibly useful because I could have conversations in a much more casual and frank way. And let me tell you something, that beat the shit out of filling out paperwork to request availability for the gas chamber or the shooting simulator or the convoy simulator or the land navigation course. When I was trying to set up training for a unit of special operators, I don't have the time or the patience when I'm trying to get training goals accomplished between 6-month deployments for steely-eyed killing machines who were moving fast and I need to make sure that they've got time to spend with their families in the middle of it. I cannot wait for an S1 to spend 3 weeks processing a request for a land nav course when I'm working at that operational tempo. But I can sure as fuck stand there and say, "Hey, Sergeant Major, you need a light?" You better believe, I guarantee, even if I was not a smoker, like I quit smoking last year, and I'm doing okay with it. It's been a bit of a thing, but even then, I've quit smoking for long periods several times in my life, but I've always carried a cigarette lighter. And there's two things here. And I mean, I'm a total hypocrite on the smoking thing. I'm aggressive about not wanting my kids to start smoking ever, but I always carry fire, steel, and cash. Always. If I'm wearing pants, I've got fire, steel, and cash. A knife, a cigarette lighter, or a book of matches, usually a lighter, usually a windproof cigarette lighter, and some cash. That cigarette lighter, there's an element there to the survival piece. I want to be able to start a fire in the woods, right? If everything falls down, if I can build a fire, I can build a world, right? But, and I'll admit, this is becoming less true over time as smoking is less and less popular and vaping is more and more popular. But having a cigarette lighter in your pocket has been a great, okay, smart ass. Yes, you're right. Well, whatever request it. You're right. S1 for personnel actions, S3 and 7 for acquisitions. Yeah. I got you, Sergeant Major. I got you. But smart ass. Totally broke my train of thought too. Oh, it's a social thing, right? If you've got a light, when somebody asks you for a light, that's a great way to start a conversation. It really is, even if you're not a smoker. And it's not always a cigarette that or a cigar or a joint. Sometimes it's fucking birthday candles or the barbecue. Yo, do yourself a favor. Carry a cigarette lighter. Carry a cigarette lighter around in your pocket. Do yourself a favor. But this guy right here, this just blows my mind. Man offered him a job.
So even interviewing me would be a moot point.
What if I gave you a job, period, to work 80 hours a week? Would you take it? And I paid you a reasonable wage.
Are we talking a livable wage or a reasonable wage?
And
whose version of reasonable are we talking about? Your version of reasonable or my version of reasonable?
But you see, so now for me, what I'm noticing from you is
I need.
I love where this goes. This guy thinks he's about to say something smart.
Specifics?
No, not necessarily. No, most of the people.
You don't need specifics. Dumbass. You're unemployed. You're broke. You've got nothing. This man just offered you a fucking job. Take the job.
Well, I hired need specifics.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is I'm trying to hire them. In this instance, you're trying to get a job and you're being selective. It's going to work against you.
I'm not trying to get a job. Originally, I was trying to ask you where the moral fell.
My offer's off the table
okay, that's
because
fine.
you're going to be difficult to work with.
Okay, sure. But my question was, where is my moral failing? Like, where is it that you are saying that I am not working hard enough and I am not doing enough?
I just experienced it right now because the way you just handled this situation.
Got it. So I should accept anything that somebody gives me at first blush
if
it is a guaranteed thing.
No, not necessarily.
I agreed to do your interview. I agreed to be interviewed by you, and you agreed to consider me for hiring.
Yeah.
So therefore, I am taking that opportunity. I've chosen to. But because I am asking you for specifics, your immediate reaction is that, oh, well, you're trying to be picky. I'm not.
I mean, oh my God. Patrick Bet David said, I'll interview you and give you a job. And this guy starts to, oh, well, is it going to be a reasonable wage or is it going to be a livable wage? Is it going to be a reasonable wage based on whose perspective? And, and he does the Gish Gallop. He talks fast. Pitt Danny says PBD should say offer revoked. He did. Listen, he did. He said, now the offer's off the table.
Oh, not necessarily.
I agreed to do your interview. I agreed.
No, not necessarily. Most of the people I hired need specifics.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is I'm trying to hire them. In this instance, you're trying to get a job and you're being selective. It's going to work.
Yeah, that's an important difference right there. He's in those instances. Yeah, most people need specifics because I'm hiring them, right? So he's talking about he's identified people who have talent that he wants to acquire. And he, PBD, is going out and approaching them and saying, "Hey, you're a great sales agent, and I have room for a producer in my organization. If I can guess, or I've researched and I know what you make, I know what your benefits package looks like. I want to offer you an improvement over that package. I want to offer you more money, better health insurance, a better retirement plan to come and work for me and leave your old company organization behind. Are you interested?" And some people, guys, some people aren't going to accept that. Some people are not going to take the, hey, here's a bunch more money to leave your current job and come work for me. Some people aren't going to take that. And I get it, right? If I'm already making way more than I need to make to pay all my bills, and I've been with the organization that I'm with for a long period of time, with people with whom I've built extraordinary trust over that period, with clients with whom I have a very, very good relationship, right? And, there's any number of things that could make me say, you know what? All that extra money sounds good, but it would mean starting over in a brand new organization, rebuilding all those relationships from scratch. I may not do that. I may not make that move. I might say, okay, I make enough money. I don't need to dramatically increase, or even I certainly don't need to marginally increase my income to give up on all the other less tangible, ephemeral benefits of just enjoying the people I work with, right? If you're only talking about a difference of 10% annually, the decision might come down to whether or not your coffee's as good as the place I already work. Because let's be real, making the move to a new organization, if you're already in a good spot where you're pretty happy, moving to a new organization, that's a lot. Especially if you have to actually move, right? Let's say I'm the baddest salesman in New York City, and PBD comes and says, "Hey, I want to double your pay to come be the baddest salesman in Fort Lauderdale." Well, double my pay, that's a lot of money. That might be a big damn deal. But, hey, I want to give you a 15% bump in pay and benefits and everything. I still might stop and look and say, okay, well, how much is the difference in the cost of living in Fort Lauderdale? And obviously this is an easy decision for me because fuck New York City and hell yeah, Florida and the beach. But what if you're very happy with the organization you're with? Well, let me tell you this that I know for sure. This piece of shit right here is not happy where he's at currently because he doesn't have a job.
I'm not trying to get a job. Originally, I was trying to ask you where the moral fell.
My offer's off the table
okay, that's
because
fine.
you're going to be difficult to work with.
Okay, sure.
And there it was. My offer's off the table because you're going to be difficult to work with. And hey, absolutely, you're going to be difficult to work with is absolutely the only reason I need not to hire you. Right? And I'll tell you the truth. Looking at this guy right here, fair play. He didn't come to PBD asking for a job, but he sat down and complained about having a hard time finding a job. And Patrick Bet David just straight up said, okay, how about this? I'll interview you and give you a job. Think about that sentence. He didn't say, I'll interview you and see if we can work together. He said, I'll interview you and give you a job. That was the offer he made. The offer he made was, I will interview you and give you a job. I don't think this guy understands, right? Successful, wealthy people, part of what makes them wealthy and successful is an obsessive adherence and dedication to their word. I don't think this guy ever understood that the PBD just straight up says, I will find something. I'll give you an interview and a job. At the end of this interview, you will have a job. And like I said a minute ago, that job might he might be the barista in the coffee shop on the ground floor of PBD skyscraper. He might be the guy that takes out the trash. He might be the mail cart guy. But you know what he won't be? He won't be any of those things forever. Right? Those are all positions that you grow from. Those are all positions that you rise from. Right? The guy pushing the mail cart eventually becomes the mailroom supervisor. And eventually, maybe goes in for some education and becomes the chief logistics officer eventually. This guy is never going to be anything because he never started anywhere. He never started anywhere. You got to start something, right? Back in the 80s, you'd hear the jive gig. They'd say, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. And what they meant was, if you don't start a fight, if you don't start trouble, there won't be a fight. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. And you know what? A lot of the guys that talked like that, they never started nothing. And guess what they are today? They're nothing. They're nothing. Yeah, we'll see where you're at in 90 days. Yeah, he did. He said that. He said, I'll give you an interview and I'll give you a job and we'll see where you're at in 90 days. Right? This guy just walked away from this unemployed shithead. Just walked away from what was probably about to be somewhere in the $70,000 to $80,000 a year range job that was just going to be handed to him. Yeah. Lil Cam, indeed, I have multiple side hustles. It takes dedication and passion, right? Yeah, I mean, I do this show. I make a little money doing the show. I've got my retirement package, and I've got a couple of side hustles that I do by contract. Real estate photography, videography. I do event videography, photography. I just picked up another gig that we'll see how that works out. Drone work, just go make money, motherfucker. Go get out there and make something. Shit, buy a ribbon printer and open an Etsy store. Do something. But this guy right here, that dude is going to be broke until the day he dies. And the funny thing about that is he's going to be broke in America complaining about communism. Complaining about capitalism and praising communism until the day he dies. And he's going to be better off broke in America than he would be wealthy in any communist country. It really is that simple. So, all right. Yeah, Pit Danny says, stop bitching, start earning multiple streams of income. Yeah, multiple streams of income, and to the greatest extent possible, you want multiple streams of self-perpetuating residual income. Right? Buy some land, son. Fuck spinning rims. Y'all be safe out there, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it there because, frankly, I'm out of coffee. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.